Trevor Lawrence is back at practice. I'll tell you what it means, if it means anything, here on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It's your team every day. We thank you for making us your first listen here on Locked On Jaguars. We can be found everywhere where you get podcasts. Make sure you tap in and listen into that location each and every day so you do not miss an episode of the Locked On Jaguars podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start your season with the big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Hello to the everydayers. Glad you are joining us here today. Let you know what we are planning for the show. Slim hopes, very slim hopes. The Jaguars have to win out, and then they have to hope that other teams don't win games. And that's probably going to be impossible for them to make the playoffs, but it has something to do with Trevor Lawrence. The Shad decision, I know people think I should say Shad's decision, plural, but no, the Shad decision. Like, are you going to move forward or are you going to stand pat? I think that we don't need to pluralize that because I think it's all connected. We'll talk about that. And Trevor Lawrence returns back to practice, as we talked about earlier. We will not bury the lead, so let's discuss it. If you see him out there, he's probably going to play. There was some talk that Trevor Lawrence, when he had his non-shoulder football injury a couple of weeks ago, there's some talk he's missed. Well, they had a bye week last week, and then he didn't play in the two previous games, and they were putrid on offense. There was some talk that maybe Trevor will go ahead and shut it down for the year and go ahead and get surgery if he needs it. Apparently, he's either feeling better or they have seen an opportunity here where the rest of the AFC South seems like they don't want to win. And they think that maybe we'll just wait and see what happens. They play everybody down the stretch, okay? They got 6 games left. They got Houston Sunday. We'll have our crossover episode tomorrow. They have the Colts at the end of the year, and in between that, they have 2 games with the Tennessee Titans. So that's 4 divisional games. Even if you don't pay attention to the rest of the games that they play, they have 6 left. They played 11. They're 2. They could get to 6-9, right, with 2 games, with the other 2 games. And it's against the Jets, which is winnable, and the Raiders. There's a chance the Jaguars could win all 5 of these games they have left. Or 6. Let me see my math. That's right. Duval County school system. 6 games that they have left. If they win them all, they're 8-9, and they're 1 game away from where they were. And I know that's saying a lot, right? But they played Houston tough the last couple of times, and Houston ain't necessarily hot as fish grease. They're not running away with anything right now. So it's a possibility that the Jaguars could beat Houston. If they beat Houston, the Jaguars just might be favored in the remaining games. You got Anthony Richardson. Nobody knows what to expect out of the Colts, even though you have to go up there. The Jaguars have won up there before. Both games against the Titans. And then the Raiders were awful. So outside of the Houston game, if they beat Houston, they may get a little bit momentum and win 8 games. Now, a whole bunch of stuff has to happen for them to win the division. Basically, Houston has to just fall on their faces, right? If the Jaguars win all of those games, though, I got to really look at the standings to really see. I know if the Jaguars win all of their games, there was some talk. I saw a report by Gene Fournette, longtime columnist, beat writer. And I think he's a columnist now for the Florida Times Union, Jacksonville.com. I believe that if the Jaguars, let's see, they have 4 games left within the division. Okay. 4 games within the division. I don't know what that would put if they win all 4 of those games. And they've already beat the Colts. Did they beat the Colts? Yeah, they beat the Colts once. Or no, they did not beat the Colts. Let me see who the Jaguars beat. Yeah, they did. They beat the Colts. So let's say they go 5-1 in the division, and they end up in a tie with Houston. Houston will really have to fall apart down the stretch. They haven't played well lately, man. So I'm gonna look at their schedule real quick. So Houston's sitting there at 7-5. Houston would have to, if Houston wins 1 more game and they end up 8-9, which I kind of doubt. I know Houston people would be like, man, what are you talking about? Well, their last 5, they've lost 3. They've lost 3 of their last 5. One of them was to the Titans. So, don't tell me that they can't beat, they can't be beaten. Yeah, they can. They absolutely can be beaten by the Jaguars, and then by anybody else. If you lose to the Titans, you can probably lose to anybody. So right now in the division, they're 3-1. The Jaguars are 1-1. So Jacksonville will have to basically end up in a tie. The division, the Colts are 1-3. I ain't too much concerned about them. It's weird that the Jaguars have only played 2 division games through 11 games, but it's just the way it is, right? So Houston 7-5, Jaguars are 2-9. They would basically have to end up in a tie with Houston. That means they have to win all of their games, and Houston can't win but one more game. I'm really talking about them winning the division. I'm not talking about a wild card. All right, I'm talking about them winning the division. That, it's a pretty big deal. That's a pretty big deal. So I think that has a lot to do with why Trevor Lawrence, why they're rolling him out there and playing. If they were eliminated, I would probably sit here and think that they wouldn't go. Now, so if the Jacksonville Jaguars win this game against Houston, here's Houston's remaining schedule. Houston would then have 5 games left. They have 5 games left because as of right now, they've played 12 games and the Jaguars have only played 11. All right. Beat them this week, and then they got to play the Dolphins, who are trying to get into the playoffs. They got to go to Kansas City, who's trying to not only get the number 1 seed, but they're trying to get their offense going. Then they have Baltimore, who's trying to make sure that they win their division and keep up, with just in case the Buffalo, they can get home field all the way up until possibly playing either Kansas City or Buffalo. And then they have those pesky Titans, the ones, and they have to go to Tennessee. They just lost at home to Tennessee. So it is not beyond the realm of imagination that if the Jaguars actually beat Houston this Sunday, and that would mean Houston has now lost 4 or 5, that Houston's going to lose to Miami, that Houston will then lose to Kansas City. They're going to lose to Baltimore. They might not be favored in either one of those games. And then Houston will be in a situation with the Jaguars where they got to go beat. And guess what? It won't matter if the Jaguars win out, which is entirely possible. It probably doesn't matter if Houston beats Tennessee. Because if the Jaguars went out, they only have 1 divisional loss. They're 1-1 right now. If they went out, they'll have 1 loss in the division. And if they beat Houston, that gives Houston 2 losses in the division. I said it the other day. I said it's the weirdest thing I've ever seen that the Jacksonville Jaguars are 2-9, and they're not mathematically eliminated from winning the division. They could pull an 8-9 off and be like those Seahawks were when they were 500. Remember the game where Marshawn Lynch ran and he sent the noise up so high in Seattle that they broke that device that actually measures how loud a stadium is? That can possibly happen. So this is why you roll in Trevor Lawrence out there. This is why you practicing, because now everybody knows that without him, they have no shot. With him, they do have a shot. This is the biggest game probably in Doug Peterson's career outside of a Super Bowl and maybe the AFC Championship game that he played in too, or the NFC Championship game he played in 2017. But you get my point. This is like career saver. And it's going to segue us into the next segment. What if what I just said actually happens and they make the playoffs? Shad might not fire anybody. That is a possibility. Somebody wrote about it yesterday in the Florida Times. Yeah, I thought it was like, okay, yeah, maybe he doesn't fire. Somebody suggested, I cannot remember the name, and I apologize, but I will reference you to Jacksonville.com, and you can read up on the piece where it just suggested that maybe they do make changes, but the one person in this whole situation that could improve how people feel about him is Doug Peterson. So we'll talk about the Shad decision, not Shad's decision, the Shad decision, the one that has to be made about the Jaguars if this scenario comes into fruition. And it's just something that kind of comes up. I know we ain't been talking about this, but we have to, because that's what we do here on Locked On Jaguars. All right, stay tuned. We'll talk about the decision that Shad might have to make if certain things happen. Today's show is sponsored and brought to you by Skylight. Now, listen, man, memories are made to be captured. Some of them are made to be shared. There's a chance that you'll have family members who won't be able to celebrate with you over the holidays. I've been through that. I've been in the military. David Harrison has been in the military. We know what it's like to miss those holidays. Here's the goal, man. The goal is for consumers of Skylight to have all-in-one touchscreen digital picture frame that allows you to share photos with your loved ones almost instantly from anywhere in the world. Maybe gift giving isn't your love language. You overthink it and it winds up with something that people don't like or nothing at all. If you come home from a big family, it could be hard and expensive to buy each one a personal gift for the holidays. This would be a great, great gift. Here's what I need you to do. As a special limited time offer for our listeners, get $20 off your purchase of a Skylight frame when you go to skylightframe.com/NFL. That's SKYLIGHTFRAME.com/NFL. Get $20 off your purchase now at skylightframe.com/NFL. Today's show is also brought to you and sponsored by our friends over at FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action this weekend with FanDuel, which is America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Rolling along here on Locked On Jaguars, where it's your team every day. Talking about the fact that Trevor Lawrence is practicing. I think that means he's going to play. I don't know why he would be out there if he wasn't going to play. They said a couple of weeks ago that it was just pain tolerance, that he could play with the non-throwing shoulder. With him being back out there, kind of tells me that they're probably gearing up to try to see exactly what can happen with this run. I'm sure somebody down there looked at the schedule and said, okay, what is the path for us to make it into the playoffs? And I'm sure they looked at Houston's schedule. I'm sure the Jaguars said we can kind of control our own destiny with the help of these other teams and with the help of the fact that Houston has to play a lot of the teams that Jaguars have already played or that other teams around the league have already played. If you want to see something, I got to tell y'all this. Go look at Baltimore's schedule. Baltimore may have had the hardest schedule of any team I've ever seen in the National Football League, considering how good the teams are that they played. And Houston has to play them. Houston has to play Kansas City. Miami got Tua back, and Houston's got to deal with that foolishness. And then they got to play Jacksonville and then deal with the Titans, who they just got beat by last week, and they got to go to Tennessee. And even if they win that game, it doesn't matter. If the Jaguars went out, the Jaguars will end up tied with them at 8-9, and that would virtually give the Jaguars a tiebreaker because they went out, they'll be 5-1 in the division. Yeah, you heard me. I'm talking about the Jaguars possibly winning the division and going to the playoffs at 8-9. The likelihood that it's going to happen is not very likely at all, but it's a possibility. And if you gave me 20-1 odds, I'd probably lay down something on it to say, hey, that is going to happen, because I look at it and I'm trying to be rational, but it's possible. But even if it doesn't happen, the fact that we can even bring this up right now, and check this out. What if the Jaguars lose a game to, say, the Raiders? And they end up, instead of 8-9, they end up 7-10. Well, what if Houston loses? No, Houston would have to lose. Then Houston would have to basically not win any games, which is absolutely possible when you look at their schedule. That they would, you wouldn't think that they would finish 7-10. Houston would then have to lose every game, including the Titans game at the end of the season. I don't know if the Titans will do the Jaguars any favor, but considering that the Titans came from the Houston franchise, they would probably want to stick it to them and real good in Houston. I'm telling you, they don't like them at all. And it is what it is. So moving forward, if that all happens, Shad Khan has been the slowest to move on things, the most patient man. And this is part of the reason I say when people ask me who wants to coach here, what do you mean who wants to coach here? This dude ain't gonna fire nobody. You almost have to commit a capital crime to get fired by Shad Khan. What do you mean who doesn't want to go here? Who doesn't want an owner that doesn't meddle, who will open up his checkbook, let you run the thing? The problem with Shad is I think they haven't put the people in place to run it the way it's supposed to be ran. Now, go 8-9, Doug Peterson's going to get all the credit. It won't be Trent Baalke. Trent can make a good claim that, hey, man, this is what we envisioned, the way we finished this season, especially if they actually get into the playoffs and win a first-round game, right? Or just put up a good fight. Trent can say, man, this is what – I think at that point, all of the credit would go to Doug, and Doug and would have more say-so with Shad and say, no, we need to make another move. So there's some validity to the point where Doug could save himself, give everybody something to feel good about around here, and then they could still make a move with Trent because some of the things that Doug is doing, he would get more credit for than Trent. And then, so there's a possibility that Shad will say, you know what, we'll go here, we'll change GMs, we'll change a few other things, we'll tweak it, but we're going to keep Doug. There's also this thing that he may say, leave it all intact because he's a patient man, maybe too patient. I don't know if patience is the right word for it. Maybe people who support Shad and all of the decisions he's made thinks that what he's doing is about patience as opposed to just, some people think he doesn't care. I don't believe somebody that pays the kind of money and that owns this team would not care. I don't think a person that's been a winner their entire life is not going to care about something. It doesn't care about winning just because he's making profit. I don't believe that. And I never will. And plus, to me, that kind of goes, that's egregious to say that about somebody because you don't know what's going on inside of a person. You know, I think he does want to every single time, and I've never formally interviewed him, but we've had some conversations just in passing. And we've also, I've asked him some questions and during group sessions. And I saw a passionate dude, man. I didn't see somebody who's just going to relax and I just think people make decisions when they delegate authority and they want to be right about the decision they made to delegate that authority. And you can call that arrogance or you can just call it being patient. And maybe those are lessons that he learned in other ventures that ended up paying off for him. So, sure, does Jaguar fans want to hear this? No, you're 2-9. Hell no, you don't want to hear it. You ain't gonna want to hear it after Sunday. If the Texans come in here and roll the Jaguars, you're gonna be like, Wig, you did that dumbass podcast on Wednesday, and I'm sorry. And you know what? Throw it at me. I don't care. But it's my job to basically show you all of the possibilities. It's not trying to hedge my bets, not trying to be right, but I'm saying, look at it. Go look at their schedule and look at Houston's schedule. Do it and tell me that it's not possible. That if the Jaguars went out and the Houston Texans lose one game, now the one game that they lose, I think, has to be the Titans game because they can't end up in a tie. I believe they end up in a tiebreaker. Houston probably wins. I don't know. I ain't no computer like that, but I'm just focusing more on what the Jaguars' path is to get to the playoffs and how that affects Shad's decision or the Shad decision. How it affects the Shad decision. So we'll see if all of those things can manifest itself, but those are the slim hopes that we are looking forward to. We're going to talk more about slim hopes and what it means. I'm not talking about what it means for the fans, what it means for the holidays, what it means for your football enthusiasm. We'll discuss that. What it also means that if they make a nice little run, even if they fall short, what that means for the next GM or coaching candidate if Shad decides, okay, yeah, we need to get somebody that could get us to the next level. I'll tell you all about that in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. Today's show is also sponsored and brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks, the #1 daily fantasy sports site in America. all you got to do is download the app, man, and you can start winning money. 10 million different members and billions of dollars being awarded out. You can make sure you can get a part of it by picking more or less on player stat projections. And you might win 10 times your money. All right. So the only way you can do that, you got to get started by downloading the Prize Picks app. Once you do that, make sure you enter the code Locked On NFL. That's right, Locked On NFL, to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. I'll say it again, $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. All you got to do is download the app and use the code Locked On NFL, all one word, Locked On NFL, and you'll get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Third and final segment here on Locked On Jaguars, recapping the show so far. Trevor Lawrence is back at practice. What does it mean? Why is he out there? What are the implications? How could it affect them winning? And if they win this game, they'll probably be favored in the next 5 games after that. And then that means all they got to do is hope that Houston loses 4 of the games where they're the favorite. There you go. And they'll have a shot. In fact, if the Jaguars beat Houston, I'm going to correct myself. If they beat Houston and then the Jaguars went out, the Jaguars will essentially be 5-1. Houston would then have their second loss in the division. So even if Houston wins one of the games, it doesn't matter who it is, whether it's the Titans or not, the Jaguars, if they finish 8-9 along with Houston, they will win it. And then it will be the 3rd straight season where they've had these streaks, where they've started out slow. At some point, they were 2-7 in 2022, and then they ended up 9-8. And then they started out 8-3, and then they ended up 9-8. Now they're 2-9 at this point, and then if they end up 8-9, it'll just be. It might still be a nail in the coffin for them unless they go to the playoffs and make some noise. It should be a nail in the coffin for somebody, because then they would realize that they have to get to another level, in my opinion. You can't have this variance. You can't have 2 seasons in one season every single year where you look putrid and look like the worst team in the league, and then you look like a top 5 in the 5 team in the league, and then you got to flip-flop and figure out whether it's going to be the start or the end. They have to determine, not only with the big picture, they have to look at it why they're that way in games, because the Jaguars, sometimes it's a tale of 2 halves, and most of the time they fall short. It's a tale of 2 halves. How come they can't consistently, like, first of all, can we play consistently for a quarter, then a half, then another quarter and another half, and can we put it together? You learn how to do that in one game, and then you learn how to do it in maybe a 4-game window. And from the 4-game window, you learn how to do it for a half a year. For now, you progressively, you have to learn how to be consistent. So even if this scenario happens, I think the consistency issue would still lead them to do something. It would lead them to do something. Here's what I want to happen. If these slim hopes actually manifest themselves and come true, I think it's going to make the fan base really happy. I think it's going to heal a little bit of the fracture that the fan base has as far as believing in this organization. I think it also would, even if they made changes, would make this a very, very attractive situation, even if I already think it's an attractive situation because of Trevor Lawrence and because of the way Shad is to owners, GMs, and coaches. To GMs and coaches, I believe that people are like, man, that's a good situation. We just got to get the right people in there, and we can fix it really quick. I think it makes them team number 1 for whoever wants to come in here and either be the GM or the coach. Interesting question. If you can't fire both, if you could only fire one, who would it be? Would it be Trent Baalke or would it be Doug Peterson? I know what I'd do. If you say, Wig, you only got one pink slip, you can't give both of them out. Oh, it'd be Trent Baalke in a heartbeat. And I figure out to get somebody in here who knows how to work with Doug Peterson. I would then hope Doug Peterson would make staff changes, but maybe he wouldn't want to after maybe he wouldn't want to make staff changes. They're going to get Dewey Wingard back here eventually, right? They're going to get some people back. I think. Is Dewey going to come back? I think they're going to, maybe they get a little bit healthy, and we'll see what happens. Maybe Trayvon and Josh close the season real well. Then they realize that they'll run for Iola Khan. He's back. Get better safety play. Tyson Campbell, maybe he'll be at full strength, and there's a way for this scenario to happen. But in any event, it gives us something to look forward to at the end of this season. Can it happen? Now, if they go out and get beat 38-12 or 38-10 by Houston because Houston's angry because they've been playing so poorly, then we go back and we start having that other discussion. And that other discussion is not whether they'll make changes, but when. I hate to say it, man, but this game is super, super important. This is the last game I think the Jaguars won't be favored this year. Yeah, I think they're going to be favored against the Jets. But hey, I mean, the Jets don't even have a GM, man, and they got a coach who's an interim coach. Basically, Aaron Rodgers is both. I don't think the Jets are going to be favored to beat the Jags, especially if the Jags have something to continue to play for. So, yeah, man, I think they control their own destiny, and I also believe that there's a slim hope that all of these emotional things that we went through all year with this team can just go away. I don't think it's likely to happen because, well, it's the Jaguars, but I do believe it's something for us to look forward to. Look forward to the crossover episode tomorrow with me and Locked On Texans as you get up and smell all of that turkey that's cooking on Thanksgiving. And then we'll be back Friday with a game preview. Make sure you lock in on Locked On Jaguars. Check me out on Locked On NFL also. It's a two-headed monster, man. Tyler rolling in the morning. Hit you upside your head like you ain't never been hit with a double shot of NFL espresso. And then I slide through in the barbershop where I am now. But we slide through in the barbershop. We use local hosts and the hosts that know your team like no one else from around the Locked On Podcast Network. All right, man, you guys take care. Enjoy your night. This is my favorite night of the year because there's a lot of cooking going on and a festive atmosphere. We will see you tomorrow here with a crossover edition of Locked On Jaguars and Locked On Texans. Until then, take care of yourself.